Maverick News presents The Rick Walker Show. Defrag your mind.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the Maverick News channel. Thank you for stopping in again. Great to have the Maverick family back. And welcome to anybody new who's watching. We continue to grow. We bring in new viewers every night between 6 and 9 p.m. Eastern Time here on the Maverick News channel. And I'm grateful for that. It means that some people are liking, sharing, and subscribing, and certainly do appreciate the support. So much to share with you tonight. Tucker Carlson will soon release a full interview with some dude named Larry Sinclair, who claims he had sex with Barack Obama and smoked crack cocaine. Can't make this stuff up. We'll tell you about that. Mike Pence changing up his campaign, rebooting, trying to portray himself as the Reagan candidate. Now, he didn't say that. I'm saying that. But a good 25% of his speech today, which was designed to really, I think, reboot and re-energize his low energy, ineffective campaign. About 25% of the speech was focused on Reagan, his admiration for Reagan, and the fact that he takes inspiration from Reagan. He's trying to portray himself as a classical or a classic conservative. And he did that today while issuing this warning about populism without actually mentioning any specific candidate by name in that way. Excuse me. So he didn't mention Trump by name, but we have some highlights from that speech. I'll comment on it tonight. It is significant. And I have to be honest, I liked a lot of what he said because I am very conservative, as I know many of you are as well. And let's face it, Trump picked Pence as his vice president because Pence is conservative and pretty solid all the way down the line. It's just that they had a parting of ways, obviously, on January 6th. And the MAGA movement, the people within it, just can't forgive him for that. What else are we going to talk about tonight? We have Secretary of State Blinken making a fourth trip to Ukraine. We have Chrystia Freeland in Canada, the finance minister and deputy prime minister, commenting on the Bank of Canada and their interest rate policies. The Burning Man Festival is over, but the cleanup continues. We have I know we've got some other stuff here. It's hard to keep it all straight in my head. There's so much. Well, I want to get to that Barack Obama stuff. Also, there's a news outlet that has been posting, I would say, misleading video, and I will show you that tonight. And if we have time, if we don't do it tonight, we'll do it another night. But I'd like to get to this at least to start the process. I want to ask you guys and give you guys an opportunity to help plan out a city of the future, something based on freedom or whatever you want. Because we keep hearing all this talk about 15-minute cities. So I'm putting the challenge out to the Maverick family and anybody else that wants to participate. Let's design the kind of city that you guys want. Instead of focusing on what we don't want, let's design something that we do want. And when we get the plan laid out, maybe it will create a template, or maybe even something that can be presented to various municipal councils, provincial governments, state governments, and maybe even federal governments. Tell them what you want. Don't just sit there and complain. So tonight we can begin that process. That's sort of what Fred the Freedom Fish was all about, has been all about. It's like, let's create a society from scratch. Let's create a plan for a city, the kind of city you guys would like to live in the future. We can all participate and see how the process goes. We can do that as part of maybe a video conference or something. But anyhow, let's take a brief break, come back, and what should we get into first? Well, maybe the Barack Obama stuff, and then we'll move on. I don't know, or maybe the Pence stuff. I'll let you, you know what? You guys decide. You tell me in the chat. What do you want to start with? The Barack Obama, Tucker Carlson sex thing? Or do you want to start with Mike Pence and his attempt to cast himself as the Reagan candidate? I'll be right back.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, I'm going to check in the Rumble chat, live chat over on Rumble. Okay, what are we starting with? Tucker News first. Okay. That's the first thing I saw in the chat. Tucker News first. I'll just type in here. Hello, Mavericks. Okay. You want Tucker? You got him. There you go. All right, let's start with Tucker first then. So, Tucker Carlson. This is kind of, I don't know, kind of weird. But Tucker Carlson has interviewed, the guy's name is Larry Sinclair. And this guy claims to have had sex with Barack Obama. And here's Tucker Carlson talking about setting this thing up, explaining how this all came about. Start with this. Here we go.
You know, in 2008, it became really clear that Barack Obama had been having sex with men and smoking crack. And a guy came forward, Larry Sinclair, and said, I'll sign an affidavit. And he did. I'll take a lie detector. And he did. I smoked crack with Barack Obama and had sex with him. Well, that was obviously true. Nobody reported it, not because they were squeamish about sex or drugs, but because the Obama campaign said anyone who reports on this gets no access to the Obama campaign. And so they didn't report on it. So that happens. That's just one small example, but that happens all the time with lots of different issues.
Now,
And
do you believe that transpired, or do you believe the guy is legitimate or both?
Oh, the Larry Sinclair story? Oh, that definitely happened. Oh, for sure. I mean, I've talked to Larry Sinclair about it, and definitely it happened. I mean, Larry Sinclair's been in and out of prison during one period. I mean, 40 years ago, he was in and out of prison. He's got a criminal record by definition. He's, poor. He's got a disordered life. He's missing a tooth. Like, he's not, an Atlantic fellow. He's not going to the Aspen Ideas Festival. I think he has a record of deception. Obviously, he does. But this story, if you listen to it in detail, is clearly true. I mean, I'm going to do an interview with him and you can hear it. And again, it's not going to change the world that Barack Obama likes dudes. I think this was well known. Barack Obama said so himself in a letter to his girlfriend. And by the way, that's kind of Barack Obama's business. I'm not attacking him for liking dudes. I'm just saying the amount of lying in the media about it was unbelievable. Like, people knew this was true, and it was quite obviously true at the time. And people who covered the campaign didn't say anything about it because they didn't want to lose access to the campaign. And that happens all the time up and down government. So it's almost like if you have a housekeeper, you think, she works for me. But if you have a housekeeper long enough, you realize, well, you actually work for her, and you get caught up in her dramas. Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah, there's a weird dynamic where you switch places with people.
And by the way, fire her abruptly and she'll write a tell-all book about Tucker at home.
That's exactly right. And, we don't even have a full-time housekeeper. So, like, that's not going to be an issue for me. But the point is, you think you're holding government accountable, but actually they're controlling you. That's really the dynamic in Washington. But, you're living in the soup, and it's hard to see it at work. And this is a long way of saying the conclusions I've reached are middle-aged conclusions. And that's a lot of it. Right. It's just that I've gotten older, and you can't see certain things when you're younger. And it's like young people, you'd think they'd be the most open-minded of all. They're the least open-minded because they're afraid of the future. So they want to believe whatever storyline they've been fed is true. Like, the only problem with America is white supremacy, and like our tax system is fair, and Kennedy was assassinated by a lone gunman or whatever. They don't want to face like the terrifying unknown and complexities of the actual world we live in, the reality of life, which is like, we have no freaking idea what's going on, actually. They don't want to admit that.
So Larry Sinclair has also come out with his own video post in response to this news being rekindled. Here, we'll run that clip for you as well tonight. And here he is. So this is also making the rounds, kind of going viral tonight.
Good morning. It is September 6th, 2023. Remember this day, because by the time the day is over, it's going to be one that we're all going to remember for quite some time. Tucker Carlson, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Not because of the interview per se, but because you, along with J, A, L, and N, you and they know who I'm referring to, actually made me realize that now is the time. After 15 years of hell, after 15 years of nothing but lies, distortions, misrepresentations, outright false statements, it's time. Everything, and I mean everything, gets put out on the table. So, thanks to a friend of mine, Luke, tonight, after Tucker's interview airs, we're going to sit down live, and the whole story, from beginning to end, everything. And I am going to go line by line, from beginning to end, And I am going to make it clear that contrary to everybody's swearing and claiming this and that about me and that it's a lie, well, it's not. And all of the lies that have been told, I'm going to actually demonstrate how they're lies. The same ones that people are, again, republishing and rehashing and spreading on X since yesterday. And I'm loving it. I really am. But when I'm done tonight, I'm going to go home. I'm going to pour myself a Grey Goose screwdriver. I'm going to relax. I'm going to have one, maybe two, maybe three drinks in my house. And then tomorrow, I am going to get with my doctors and I'm going to schedule the surgery on my right arm and hand. And then I will start concentrating on what I need to do as far as being able to have what I need for recovery and what I need to get the left hand and arm done. But I can't do them both at the same time. But Tucker Carlson has shown me and made me realize that it really is time to put it all out. And you know what? If you can't accept it, and a lot of you won't, but it doesn't matter. It won't change the facts. No matter how much you try to distort them and misrepresent them, it won't change them. The difference between me and most of you, I've never hidden from or denied or tried to excuse anything I've ever done or said in my life. I've always owned it, always will. That's just the way I've always been. So enjoy. I will see you tonight with Luke. That's Luke at We Are Change. And let the chips fall where they may. But September 6, 2023 will be a day you remember. Have a good day.
Something about that kind of creeped me out. Pretty dark. I gotta say that. Pretty dark. Let me see here. I've got okay, so here we go. Let's pull this up. This is a little preview for you. I believe that's what we've got here. Queued it up earlier, and I think we're good to go with this. Yeah. Rock and roll.
Barack Obama got as far as he did. In 2004, the summer of 2004, Barack Obama gave the keynote address at the Democratic Convention in Boston. And when he walked to the podium, probably only a small percentage of people in the room knew how to pronounce his name. He was totally unheard of. No one knew Barack Obama. At the time, he was a state senator in Illinois. 4 years later, he once again spoke to the Democratic Convention, but this time as the nominee. Meteoric doesn't begin to describe it. How did this happen? Well, the outlines are fairly well known, though rarely talked about. A small group of Democratic donors, mostly in Chicago, decided that Barack Obama was their guy. He was the vessel for their ambitions. They paid for his campaign. They paved the way for his rise. He spent 2 years pointlessly in the United States Senate preparing to run for president in 2008. And of course, in the end, he won. But the question was, who was this man? Where did he come from? What did he spend his life doing before he became president of the United States? Well, the news media, whose job it is to answer those questions, spent the entire 2008 campaign trying to keep you from knowing the answers. By election day, most Americans knew only one thing about Barack Obama, other than he was handsome and a good communicator: hope and change. But they knew nothing about him, his origins, what he believed, and legitimate questions about those facts were turned away, as they often are, with the claim, "That's a conspiracy theory. You're crazy. Shut up." One of the most interesting moments in the 2008 campaign occurred when a man, like Obama himself, came from out of nowhere to recount his experiences with Barack Obama, the man. His name was Larry Sinclair, and he told an amazing story. He said that in 1999, he had encountered Barack Obama in Illinois, had sex with Barack Obama, and then used cocaine with him. Sinclair went on to make these claims publicly at the National Press Club in Washington, to sign a sworn affidavit, and to take a lie detector test. But he was dismissed. In fact, he was attacked. Obama shills like Ben Smith of Politico batted the claims out without refuting them. They're absurd. And the rest of the media followed suit. But the claims weren't absurd. We're not claiming they're true, but they were certainly credible. This was a firsthand account of Barack Obama's behavior by someone who was willing to sign a sworn affidavit to that effect. So the question is, whatever happened to Larry Sinclair? What's his life been like since? That's an interesting story. It turns out Larry Sinclair is still alive. He lives in Mexico. But today, he's in our studio, and we're happy to have him. Larry Sinclair, thank you so much.
Thank you for inviting me.
Where did you meet Barack Obama?
It was by accident. I was in the Chicago area in '99 for Lee Duke's graduation from the Naval Academy.
Who's Lee Duke?
He's basically my godson.
Okay.
I had hired a limousine service.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Did you live in Chicago then?
No. I was actually living in Colorado. I had flown in the night before.
Okay.
So I had hired a limousine service, had made the driver aware that if Lee couldn't leave the base, because once they graduate, some of them actually get their assignments and they're shipping out and they can't leave the base, that I was still interested in going out, and had asked the driver if he knew anybody that was available that might want to show me, Chicago. And he said he did. So
Well, who was the driver?
his name was Jameer Multani. It was with 5-star limo.
So you're just a guy who's in town for the night, and it sounds like you're looking to party, actually. Yeah.
That's
what you're really saying.
Yeah. Well, I was in town for a few nights, but yeah, I was definitely looking to party. And
Did you make that clear to the driver?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. There was no misunderstanding.
How direct were you about that?
Extremely.
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 Okay.
Yeah. There was no doubt what I was looking for.
Okay.
And he picked me up at my hotel in Gurnee and drove into Chicago, pulled up in a bar outside, and there's this guy that's introduced to me as Barack Obama. It was literally that casual.
Had you ever heard of him?
No.
Did the driver know him?
Yep. The driver definitely knew him because the driver said that he was a friend.
Interesting. How would the driver be friends with Barack Obama?
I only found out later, dealing with a reporter from Bloomberg News, that apparently the limousine company had been doing business with Tony Resco, that at the time was somehow affiliated with
in
Barack
Obama's
Obama.
orbit.
Yeah.
Yes. Interesting. So he knew Barack Obama, and in his view, Barack Obama liked the same kind of partying you were looking for.
Yep.
Okay. So sex and drugs, in other words.
The sex part I wasn't so sure about until, of course, you make your move, but it became obvious very quick. The coke part I thought was interesting because of the way that I had brought it up.
So I'm stepping on your story. So you pull up, and I apologize. So you pull up to this bar. The driver is basically scouting some dude for you to hang out with.
Correct.
There's this guy, Barack Obama. Have you ever heard of Barack Obama?
Never. Okay. Never. We're having drinks. I mentioned the fact that I could use something to wake up. I was extremely exhausted.
So you went into the bar?
Yes, sir.
What kind of bar was it?
I'm trying to remember. I've been trying to remember the name. I know that the glasses had 3 X's on them, because I remember taking one home for a friend of mine.
You stole,
but I mean, generally characterize it. Was it?
It was
working class bar,
no,
gay
it was
bar,
upscale.
strip bar.
It was upscale, quiet. Wasn't really that really didn't have a lot of energy to it. It was
Yeah.
more relaxed, more like a lounge as opposed to somewhere where people would go and get loud and crazy.
Yeah.
Which made it easier to talk. But like I said, when I brought up the fact that I could use something to wake up, he immediately knew what I was referring to, had made it clear that I was looking for coke, and I really was, and had made the suggestion that he knew where we could get it, and we left to go get it.
Interesting. Did he say what he did for a living?
Nope. I had no idea that he was a representative in the Illinois House. I had no idea he was in politics. I just knew that he was supposedly married and at the time was going through some issues with the marriage.
He said that?
That was made clear. Yeah.
Did he say what kind of issues?
No.
Do you remember? No. So you said, I'm looking for someone to wake up. He knows you're referring to cocaine. I know where to get it. What happens next?
We get back in the limo. The driver takes us wherever it is that Barack had instructed him to take us. I had given Barack $250 to pay for coke. He gets out, comes back. I start putting a line on a CD tray to snort.
And you're in the limo.
Yep.
Driving or parked?
No, the driver's driving.
Yep.
I start to put a line on a CD tray, and I just happen to notice that he pulls something else out of his pocket. And next thing I know, he's got a little pipe and he's smoking. So I don't have an issue with it. I mean, some people smoke, some people snort.
Smoking the cocaine.
Yes. So as I'm doing a line, I just start. This is the part where you kind of make your move to see where things are going. So I just started rubbing my hand along his thigh to see where it was going, and it went the direction I had intended it to go. So the night became somewhat active sexually and drug-wise in the limo.
So you hit on him. Did he seem shocked by that?
Not at all.
Yeah. I mean, if you're smoking crack with a stranger in the back of a limo, like, you got to imagine things might go crazy places.
Well, not only imagine it, I look at it this way. I've done a lot of crazy things in my lifetime. I'm a pretty good judge of character, and I pretty much know whether or not I can move in a certain direction with an individual. I didn't feel that I was going in the wrong direction. I just wasn't so sure how much I could trust the individual
Right.
at first. And that was probably one of my bigger concerns. But the fact that I was already becoming somewhat buzzed, you kind of throw caution to the wind.
You weren't sure you could trust the individual. What does that mean?
When you meet someone out of the blue and you go to a level that you're doing drugs with, or you're giving money to purchase drugs, or even for sexual activity, you have to be sure that you can trust them. And when I say trust, I mean that you're not going to end up being robbed, or that you're not going to end up having a knife stuck into you,
right.
From one direction or another, or that you're not going to pull up somewhere and all of a sudden the car door is going to open and you got 5 people pulling you out of it.
Totally.
That's what I mean when I say trust someone.
And you've been around at this point in your life, big time.
Yeah.
Right. So probably not your first time in a situation like this.
Not at all. And that's why I said I pretty much know where I can go and at what point.
So you start rubbing his leg, and I think, I'll just be totally blunt with you, like a man who's not into gay sex would be like, whoa.
Okay.
Settle down. Trust me.
So you can watch the rest on Twitter, X. Enough. I don't know what comes after this. I don't know what the point is. Obama's gone, sort of. He's in the background. What purpose does this serve? I'm not quite sure. Other than, of course, it's titillating. It is a ratings generator. And it ties into I guess today's political mood out there. Wow. And of course, that Larry Sinclair, who is being accused of being a con man by a lot of media outlets today. And he clearly does have a past. Will be, I guess, online tonight with even more information. So there's a taste of the Tucker revelations or regurgitations, resurrections, the rekindling of a story from 2008 about Barack Obama. Someone that I think a lot of people believe is pulling strings behind the scenes, still heavily influential in the current Biden administration, maybe even part of the control apparatus in the background. Pretty clear that Joe Biden himself not really in control. All right. What a way to start the broadcast. Stay with me. Mike Pence up next.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay. Mike Pence, way back in the polls, trying to shore up his bid to become president against a formidable opponent, Donald Trump. So today he went to New Hampshire, St. Anselm College, and he gave what his campaign team describes as a major address. This was an attempt to reboot his campaign, in my estimation. He issued a warning about populism, saying the Republican Party is kind of at a crossroads. They have to choose at this point their path into the future. Are they true conservative Republicans, or will they choose a path of populism? Populism, somewhat difficult to define. We've talked about it a fair bit here on this program. It's a movement that is growing not only in the US, but also in Canada. And I think, on the Canadian side, my first experience personally with the expansion of the populist movement was with the People's Party of Canada. And back in 2015, when Trump came down the escalator, that was actually, a critical point in the expansion of populism in the US as well. Trump basically took over the Republican Party with the MAGA movement. but it was a little different back in 2015. And I would say this, and it's been a similar process in Canada. It began as an offshoot of conservatism, but throughout the history of populism, the movement, the any populist movement in the past has always sort of attracted people from across the political spectrum, uniting everyone behind one or two common causes, but bringing people from the socialist camp and the conservative camp and everything in between, even anarchists, communists, libertarians, you name it. You look at any populist movement in the past or anything current, and you'll find a wide spectrum of players there. Both in the States, though, in my view, with Trump, and in Canada, with the People's Party of Canada, they began as conservative movements this time around, but they've evolved over time to have people from other political camps come in and populate the base. Well, as a result of that, I think I have seen a change personally in what is going on with Trump and his campaign. It has a completely different feel now than it did in the beginning. And I think that is because you're getting more of the socialist element in there. You're getting more of the Bernie Sanders people in there. You're getting also more of the QAnon people. You're getting other people with I would say even more extreme political views. And we've seen that in Canada, in the past and currently as well. It's just the nature of populism. It tends to attract other people from the outer edges of all the different political ideologies. Even, you get some anarchists in there too. And I remember with the old Reform Party in Canada, for instance, Preston Manning, who led the party at the time, was accused of flirting with the far right at the time. And this was years ago, many years ago. And I remember his response was something to the effect of, a bright light always attracts some bugs. Well, in the case of populism in the States, I don't know. I guess you could make that argument as well. And you can see that there's definitely fear on the neoliberal woke side, within the Democratic Party, within the ruling administration or regime with Biden. And that's why you're seeing such an emphasis on lawfare, arrests, the way they've handled the J6 incident. You're seeing the same kind of approach in Canada with Trudeau, cracking down, using the legal system on the truckers. Today, day 2 of the trial for Tamara Litch and Chris Barber, 2 of the most prominent figures in the freedom movement and the Freedom Convoy, back in court today for day 2 of their ongoing trial, facing severe penalties if convicted on charges like mischief, which the government has taken to a whole new level. But it just shows how afraid of the populist movement the governments in both Canada and the United States, the ruling parties right now, the Liberals and the Democrats in the States, shows how afraid they are. Well, Pence, I think he's also concerned. I think he sees, those elements on the outer edges. He's concerned about that. But more than that, he sees the populist element in within the populist movement, or the populist element of the Republican Party right now. He sees that there is a left-wing sort of socialist element to it, a strong one, especially now, more than there was before. He said today during this special address that when he was vice president, he and Trump ruled as conservatives. They governed as conservatives. I don't know fiscally if Trump really was a fiscal conservative, but that's what he said today. But he sees that, the populist movement shifted everything left. And he says that's not really what the Republican Party is. Today, he said, Republicans have a choice to make. In a way, I think he's right. I think, though, the party largely already made that choice when they threw their support behind Donald Trump. And he is so far back in the polls. I really don't know that there's any coming back at this point, because I think, even though Mike Pence is saying they have to make a choice, it seems to me they've already made their choice. The Republican Party, because of Trump at the moment anyway, has become the populist party of the United States, because he has fundamentally transformed, if not the country. He hasn't fundamentally transformed the country, but he has transformed the party. Here's what Pence had to say in New Hampshire today.
And the Republican Party must provide the American people with that new leadership in 2024. The question of the hour, then, is not just who, but what will we offer the American people a year from this November? So I came here to Anselm College to simply say from my heart that Republican voters face a choice in this state and in every state around the nation as these primaries unfold. And I believe that choice will determine the fate of our party and the course of our nation for years to come. So today I ask my fellow Republicans this: in the days to come, will we be the party of conservatism, or will we follow the siren song of populism, unmoored to conservative principles? The future of this movement and this party belongs to one or the other, not both. That's because the fundamental divide between these two factions is unbridgeable. History teaches that societies with more freedom and less government flourish. That's why we have a brilliant system of checks and balances, divisions of authority, co-equal branches of government, enshrined in our Constitution, and sovereign state governments under our system of federalism. Conservatives understand that in order to advance an agenda on behalf of the American people, we must work through the system, the political home of those who believe in limited government and individual liberty, who keep faith with our Constitution, is the Republican Party. Now, for decades, conservatism's ideological rival has been liberalism, an ideology that has long found favor in the Democratic Party. The radical left has now taken the Democratic Party into the abyss of progressive socialism in the guise of their woke agenda. Where conservatives view government power with great suspicion, progressives wield it eagerly in pursuit of their political goals, especially their massive avalanche of spending and mandates known as the Green New Deal. And when their goals are obstructed or delayed, liberal progressives undermine our institutions and are prepared to disregard the Constitution and even the laws of this country. Just this week, Senate Democrats actually attacked the Supreme Court of the United States again, demanding an investigation into Justice Samuel Alito, despite the fact that 3 liberal justices on the court have engaged in the exact same pattern of behavior that he has. The attacks on our institutions with which they differ continues. You know, if Democrats didn't have double standards, they'd have no standards at all. But today, another strain of this ideology challenges conservatism, not from the Democratic Party, but from within, for control of the Republican Party. It takes the form of what's known as populism rather than progressivism. But make no mistake about it, those ideologies are fellow travelers on the same road to ruin. Now, populist movements have long been a part of the fabric of American politics. They've most often been led by Democrats like William Jennings Bryan, Huey Long, and more recently, Bernie Sanders, and other leftists who share the party's progressivism. But today, a populist movement is rising in the Republican Party. The growing faction would substitute our faith in limited government and traditional values with an agenda stitched together by little else than personal grievances and performative outrage. The Republican populists would abandon American leadership on the world stage, embracing a posture of appeasement in the face of rising threats to freedom. Republican populists would blatantly erode our constitutional norms. A leading candidate for the Republican nomination last year called for the, quote, termination of all rules, regulations, and articles, even those found in the Constitution, close quote. While these imitators in this primary have demonstrated a willingness to brandish government power to impose their will on opponents.
So Pence, I do not personally, I don't align with him on his foreign policy. I find it concerning. I would say when it comes to foreign policy, he's something of a neocon. Might even get us all blown up if you continue to pursue those kinds of policies. But on the domestic side, I'm very, conservative fiscally, socially. So I understand what he's saying, and he is definitely keying in on the left-wing elements, the progressive elements of the populist movement, which have definitely become a part of the Republican Party and the MAGA movement. And that is why we've said on this program many times, we've had discussions about it, the dovetailing of appeal between the Bernie Sanders camp and the Donald Trump camp. You saw that even when Bernie Sanders was running for the leadership against Hillary Clinton for the nomination to run against Trump at the time. Anyway, Pence is, he's kind of on a. I have to say this. I know a lot of people within the Republican Party, especially the MAGA folks, and I think just probably the majority of people in our audience here can't forgive him for the way he handled January 6th. But I will say this, even though he's way back in the polls, I think he is a man of conviction. And I think he believes what he's talking about. I think he is a man of principle. And for him, these are his principles. So I have to respect that. I think he's sincere here. And I think that some of his concerns are actually somewhat legitimate, because I do see this, if you are a traditional conservative and you see this populist movement sort of taking over your party, it's not really compatible. I've learned that as well, moving sort of from a conservative position and affiliations in the past in Canada over to the populist movement, thinking that it was primarily conservative, only to find that over time it has evolved into something very different than what it was in the beginning. It has become much more collectivist. And as a result of the addition of all these different people with all these different kinds of ideas, it's also taken on an air of authoritarianism. And I think that is because of the some of the people on the outside edges who were, I think, even there from the beginning and have exerted their influence in such a way that they've really risen to prominence within the populist movement in my country. And I'm seeing the exact same sort of thing from the US side. And a lot of what's going on in Canada is because of the influence from the populist movement in the US up into Canada. We'll probably we're going to explore this more in the days and the weeks ahead. And I think the other question to ask is, can you actually win elections with a populist movement? In the States, I don't think people really understand what it is. I think in Canada, there's more of a recognition that the populist movement, because it is part of a separated party, a new party, people see it as something that isn't quite within the mainstream yet. Growing in popularity, though, definitely should be taken more seriously by the prime minister, because they represent, the freedom movement for sure. And the Conservative Party, to some degree, has also tried to bring the freedom movement under its wing, or freedom movement supporters anyway. But in the States, it's more disguised because it's within the party. And I don't know if people really fully understand what has happened there, with Trump sort of taking over the party with his populist movement, transforming the party. And I think a lot of people still think of the Republican Party in a traditional way, but Pence is identifying a fundamental change within the Republican Party itself. And this huge shift is what is propelling Donald Trump to victory. But he has said many times that it's not just about Trump, it's a movement that is bigger than just him. But is it? If Donald Trump was not at the helm, if Donald Trump isn't selected for whatever reason, if let's say they're successful and he doesn't qualify, and he's disqualified for some reason because of these legal issues, and he's no longer he ends up not being the nominee, what would happen to the populist element of the party? Would it then revert back? I don't know. Would it go back to being more conservative? Would it break all of that apart? Is Donald Trump the glue that brings it all together, keeps it all together? It seems in many respects that that's the case. And then what would happen to these other candidates? Would Pence then get more attention? I don't think people are really listening to what he has to say, but I think that in this regard, his analysis of the populist movement is actually quite accurate. Not to say that, I'm endorsing him or anything like that. I'm not, but what he's saying is quite valid. I do identify with a lot of what he's saying because he is a traditional conservative. I don't care much for his neocon foreign policy. You guys probably have your own, I'm sure you all have your own views on that. But he says, when he was in office, he ruled or governed with Trump as a conservative, as conservatives. And they, he says they had great success, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, until the big pandemic came along. And he wants to go back to that. That's why he spent so much time today talking about Ronald Reagan. He is trying to now position himself as the Reagan candidate. Because he knows, I really do believe that Reagan probably for him represents the traditional conservative values that Pence really does identify with and aligns with. I believe he's sincere in that regard. And within the Republican Party itself, Reagan is held up as an idol. He sets the bar for conservatives. So Pence can successfully align himself with that image. He should climb in the polls. Here he is talking about just this very thing his admiration for Ronald Reagan.
I came to the Republican Party because of Ronald Reagan. And I remember when I was roughly the age of many of the students gathered here, marveling as his economic policies defeated inflation. His predecessor, Jimmy Carter, had told us that we were a nation in malaise, that we had to accept a new normal of slow economic growth and high inflation. Reagan came in and said, why not dream great dreams? After all, we're Americans. And they cut taxes, rolled back regulations, promoted economic freedom, and America came roaring back. The longest peacetime expansion since the end of World War II. I marveled at the way his policy of peace through strength broke the Soviet Union eventually and strengthened our military as never before. Now, some Republican candidates for the nomination and the populists in our party maintain that Reagan is no longer relevant. But they confuse inspiration with imitation. You know, over 4 decades have passed since Reagan took office, 3 since he left this earth. The great contests of his time and ours are different. In his day, the Cold War between the old Soviet Union and the United States defined global politics. Now the Cold War is long over. During his presidency, our primary rival today, Communist China, was economically impoverished and militarily unsophisticated. We live in a very different time. Conservatives need not replicate every single Reagan policy or strategy, nor should we. But we can emulate his belief in freedom and economic liberty. We can emulate his willingness to stand up to evil regimes on the world stage and stand alongside the friends of freedom across the world. And we can emulate his dignified and civil way of carrying himself as president to meet today's challenges. Ronald Reagan himself said with regard to his own ideas, quote, I wasn't a great communicator, but I communicated great things, and they didn't spring full bloom from my brow. They came from the heart of a great nation. The American ideas Ronald Reagan expressed were not his. They were grounded in the American founding, fought for and defended through the long and tumultuous history of American freedom. Leaders pass into history, but first principles endure. The politics of convenience driven by the passing moment, however, are soon to fail and be forgotten. Reagan used beliefs that long predated him to meet the threats of his own times, and so should we. He took inspiration from the likes of Calvin Coolidge and Dwight Eisenhower and the founder of the Republican Party, Abraham Lincoln, as he brought America back. The truth is, the Republican Party did not begin on a golden escalator in 2015. Long before that day, it was forged and defended and defined as the conservative party in America. And so it should ever be. I actually met President Ronald Reagan when I was a first-time candidate for Congress. It was his last year in office. I was 29 years old. It would be more than a decade before I would arrive in the Congress of the United States, but I was there along with my young bride for a photo op with the 40th president. And I'll never forget the encounter. I walked into the Blue Room and the president was seated there. The cameras were all clicking. When I told my young wife before, I said, the campaign wanted me to say something political to him, but I wanted to say something from my heart. Karen did what she always does. She patted me on the arm and just said, just tell him what's on your heart. So I sat down. You can look it up on your phone right now. You can see the picture. I was as nervous as a cat in a room full of rocking chairs. I Sat down in that chair, looked into the president's eyes, felt for all the world like I was talking to Mount Rushmore. The president said to me, "How's the campaign going?" And I said, "It's going fine, Mr. President, but I got something I'd like to say to you." He said, "Well, go ahead." And I said, "I just want to thank you for everything you've done for this country and everything you've done to restore my generation's confidence in America again. And I'll always believe that in that moment, the 40th President of the United States almost blushed like he'd never heard it before. And he said, "Well, Mike, that's a very nice thing of you to say." I can almost still hear it. But it was moments later that made the most impression on me. The president walked into the East Room to greet the spouses that were along with the candidates. And apparently some of the candidates had said to him the same thing I had said. They thanked him for what he'd done in 8 years to transform the American economy and had set into motion forces that in just a few short years would bring down Soviet communism and see the Berlin Wall collapsed and destroyed. He stood up at a makeshift podium and he said, "You know, many of you have thanked me for what I did for this country." But then Ronald Reagan said, "I don't think I did anything for this country." He said, "I think the American people just decided to right the ship. And I was just the captain they put on the bridge when they did it." Ronald Reagan believed in the American people. And so do I.
So there you have it. I mean, he's obviously trying to position himself as the Reagan candidate. Does he stand a chance? There's still a lot of ground to cover between now and the end of the selection or election process. I don't know. Politics, it's unpredictable. Right now, I would say he's a very long shot. I don't think people within the party will forgive him for what happened on J6. But I think it is wise to listen to what he has to say. I think much of what he conveyed in that speech is accurate as far as the analysis of the political landscape within the Republican Party is concerned, and his analysis also of the populist movement. I think there's truth in it. He's a seasoned politician, and he can see what's going on. It's relevant. It's timely. He provides some clarity, and we would be wise to just take note. We should listen to what all of these candidates have to say, whether you support them or not. They offer more perspective. I'm always in favor of getting as much information as you possibly can so that we are always fully informed, or as fully informed as we can be. That is what gets us closer to the truth. Don't go away. More Maverick News coming right up.
The New World Order. Government overreach. The Great Reset. Mainstream media lies. Now more than ever, independent voices are needed. Donate now at freedomreporters.com. That's freedomreporters.com. Maverick News. The antivirus program for your mind.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
And since we're on the topic of populism, that certainly is the driving force behind the freedom movement. And it was a driving force behind the Freedom Convoy over a year and a half ago in Canada. And you may remember that there was an 80-year-old man who was arrested because he tooted his horn while driving through a neighborhood in Ottawa. The guy's name was Gerald Charlebois, 80 years old. We ran the video at the time of him being detained by police. It turned into a little bit of a discussion. And the cops at the time took him away because there was a law that had been passed, a bylaw against honking. You couldn't honk your horn. So, of course, that video went viral. He was charged $118 for unnecessary noise at the time. But we can tell you that the charges against him have now been dropped. After all this time, his lawyer has confirmed that the Crown dropped the charge. I'm going to run the video for you, though, to remind you of how police were treating citizens when the convoy was active in Canada's capital city. This is what they did to Mr. Charlebois.
Have to answer his question, sir. You don't have to answer his question,
He tooted
sir.
his horn, got pulled over.
He does have to.
No, he doesn't.
You want comments? Film me from the sidewalk.
Fuck
You
off.
want comments? Film me from the sidewalk.
Yeah. You see what he
Driver's
did?
license.
Yes, I know.
He swung at me.
You're abusing
Driver's
old
license.
men.
You swung at me.
That you're
Driver's
not a
license.
Canadian.
If I swung at you, it's on film, so you're fine. Driver's
Because I
license.
tooted the horn. Yeah. He's come and hit me.
Yeah,
it's called
That
communism.
is why you're pulled
It's
over.
called
That's
communism.
right. Driver's license.
It's communism. You don't have to show anything. You didn't do anything wrong. I know I have. You have the right of freedom of choice. You have the right to beep your horn or whatever. Why are you doing this?
Because it's an offense.
Of
It's an
what?
offense to beep your noise.
No, it is not an offense
It
since
is.
when?
Tell me it's not. I have it written down that it is. It's actually an
So
offense.
you're
correct?
standing with your lying government? You're lying cop.
Driver's license.
He's right.
Okay.
Do you know that your superior is a liar and he went on the media lying to the Canadian people? Now you're
Talk to
doing
the
this?
police, have me fired. Have me
What's
fired.
your name and badge number?
2192 Jones.
Jones.
There. You have everything you need to have me fired.
Yeah,
for
look at
abusing
what
my
they're doing to
authority.
an old man.
Okay.
That's a citizen of Canada.
That's right.
That's
So
exactly
is everybody who lives here.
Doesn't matter.
What about them?
This is the
What about
capital of
I can
Canada.
have you
Drop your
on-
mandates. Stand down.
I don't have
You're not doing your job. You're representing hate. You're a terrorist.
That's the bank card.
You're a terrorist.
Driver's license.
I don't know why the fuck you're representing hate. No,
Driver's license.
you're representing hate.
Call your lawyer.
You'd be really
Call your lawyer. I don't care. Give me your driver's license, insurance, registration.
You have to talk up the whatever. Maybe you're on his side, but I mean,
Focus.
because I finished one of that guy because he got flagged. That's right. He's a supporter for Canadian freedom. Who cares? They shouldn't live in the capital of Canada. Then they better leave. Because until the mandates are ended, this is not going to stop.
It's on your license.
Stop harassing old men. You don't have to show them anything. It's against the law. You just
You're under arrest.
for what? Hey,
Under arrest.
what are you doing?
Failing to ID.
Hey, that's assault. I've got it all on video.
Failed to ID.
Yeah, he failed to ID.
Get back. Get back. Get back.
We're back. We're filming. We're doing our part.
Get back.
It's all on video. No, don't say anything. Don't say anything.
You attack me? You're a fucking goof.
Hey, Rick, stand down. Stand down. Stand down. Rick, no, it's peaceful. No, let them be.
Attack me, you fucking goof. Fucking not doing shit. Touch me, punk ass.
This is going right to the media. YouTube. What's your name and badge number? 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 Look, they're hurting an old man, a Canadian citizen. It's communism. This is communism. He's scared. Communist.
You stand with the communist fucking government.
Call your police chief. He'll back you up.
Call the police.
Call your police chief. Arrested an old man. Shame on you. Shame on you. Shame on you. Yeah, I know he beat the horn. What the?
I so remember what it was like at that time. I'm glad they dropped the charges, but the process for him was the punishment. Having that hang over your head all that time, having to deal with it, being arrested and humiliated like that for tooting your horn. The law was put into place in Ottawa because the truckers were there and they were receiving complaints about the truckers honking their horns during the protest. So this guy's driving around, he toots his horn, gets pulled over, the horn on his minivan. Beep, beep. That was all it took. And that's what we got. That's what it was like. Do you remember? Don't forget. I haven't forgotten. And I'm afraid. I'm afraid of what's coming next. Talk of mask mandates coming back. Maybe more. I don't think the politicians have learned anything. They kind of got away with it, didn't they? That's what set off all of this resistance, that overreach. Most Canadians honestly applauded it, asked for it, wanted it because they were so scared. And people on the other side were scared too, but for different reasons. And the mandates, the laws, the authoritarianism, over the top. I hope that the Prime Minister is watching tonight. And I hope that Canada's premiers are watching tonight. Please don't do it again. We're heading into the fall. People are scared again. We all see that there is a desire out there where some would like to bring these mandates back. And with that, we would get these authoritarian measures again. It's a big mistake. Please don't do it. If that happens again, some people, I'm sure, will get way out of line. I don't want that. If you bring back those kinds of measures again, it will do even more damage to a country that has been damaged possibly already beyond repair. It could rip this whole country apart. Please don't. Try a little compassion, a little understanding, and a little tolerance. Justin, it's never too late to change. Try being a little more Canadian. Please. We need that. Be the leader that people thought you were going to be. I know it's difficult, especially when you've gone over here. But I've noticed a bit of a change in your tone and the choice of words. I think you realize at this point that you did make a mistake when you insulted a large portion of the Canadian population. And I don't think that you've read the country properly. I think you've misinterpreted and haven't gauged properly the populist movement or the freedom movement within the country. The size of it, it's not a small fringe minority. Certainly not anymore. All you ever had to do, really, I think, is just open a dialogue. Talk. Find some middle ground. Compromise. Tolerate. And everyone's better off. It's not about whether you are legitimizing what you see as an unacceptable political movement by talking to people. Whether you like it or not, it's there. Whether you choose to acknowledge it or not, it's there. They're Canadians too. And somehow we have to learn to live together. Please don't do it again. I don't know if the country can survive it. Keep the peace. Please, keep the peace.
Hello, world. Are you awake? Uniting humankind by liberating millions of minds at a time. Maverick News. The world is watching.
You know, I was thinking of starting a new show, calling it Truspiracies, where we look at conspiracies and explore them, or conspiracy theories even, and then explore them to find out what parts of those conspiracy theories are true and what parts of them are not. Haven't done that. We've kind of done a little bit of it here on the program. It gets people emotionally engaged at times. People have been sending me this over the past day. I've received it several times in the last 24 hours. So it must be, it's making the rounds out there. This is a video, and I want to just draw your attention to it because a lot of people are very focused on it. So I want your opinion on this, first of all. Because it is, well, it's about transhumanism. It's about eternal life. It's about a company that can record your consciousness and put it into another body. Tell me what you think of this video that has been sent to me multiple times over the past 24 hours.
You're probably wondering what's a human sleep. Well, if you gather around, I can let you know what we do here in full details. So here at Psychosec, we've been able to achieve true immortality by taking your human consciousness and storing it on a device called a portable stack. It's implanted in the base of your neck, and it collects and stores everything that makes you you. Every memory, every emotion, every sensation, everything you've ever experienced gets stored on this little device. You can see it here on this screen that's about to come up. You guys just follow me. All the information is stored on this device and can be digitally transferred from one sleep that you currently occupy into the sleep of your choosing.
In our lab.
You probably.
Okay, so give me your opinion in the chat. What do you guys think? What do you think of that video? A human sleeve, and then they record your consciousness onto some sort of a device, and when you die, they say they're going to put it into one of these human sleeves, which is a human body that they grow in a lab. What do you think? Opinion. Looking for some comments. Nana Sue 4 says, hell no. Jungle in Rumble says, strange world in the background. Old Saucy says, there's only one way to live forever, and it's not that. Yep. So, what do you think of the technology? Do you think that that's a viable option for people at this point? So bad, says Gary. Be Lovely One says that's really awful. 115 Sharon doesn't believe it. She says it's a science fiction pitch for a movie with a question mark. And Too Much for Air says 100 years ago, this guy would have been selling snake oil. Yeah, so some people not believing it. And I can tell you that it's not true. It is actually from a Netflix television series from a couple of years ago. What was the name of it? It was called Carbon. Oh my goodness. Carbon something or other. But it's, been presented to the public as, let me see if I can get you the name of the series. So somebody took a clip and a clip from the show. I don't know what they did. Maybe they shot it off the screen with a phone, which is why it's kind of blurry and not properly framed up at all times. But yeah, let me see if I can find it. Netflix Carbon Altered. was the name of the series, 2018 to 2020, set in the future, where consciousness is digitized and stored in cortical stacks implanted in the spine, allowing humans to survive physical death. But it is being presented to the public on Twitter or X through this CBK News account as though it's actual news and it's a real thing. And their post, show it to you. So if somebody's sending you this and you think this is real, and some people might actually get sucked in by this, CBK News, there's the Twitter post with this clip, says this is the company responsible for producing human clones, offering facility tours and presentations to its customers and clients. No. No. It's a clip from the Netflix series that they took, altered it. It's an altered clip. Is what that is. It's not altered carbon or carbon altered or anything other than a completely misleading post designed to make, I don't know why they do. It's just clickbait. I don't know. But people keep sending it to me. They have been. So if they're sending it to you folks, just letting you know, also not true, not real, completely science fiction. And because you guys honestly are pretty smart, the altered carbon, Will Jennings. Yeah, Will Jennings says it's deception straight from the pits of hell. Yeah. Yeah, altered carbon, Wonky Man says. And Choosy says, that's the biggest bunch of Frankenstein Jesuitism I've heard of in a long time, Rick. Memory sleeve my ass. Yeah. Anyway, just thought I'd share it with you because when I first saw it, I was like, what is this? And we've talked about transhumanism here, which is a real thing. And we've got Elon Musk with his technology that allows them to actually jack in, right? So at first I'm like, well, is this Musk's technology? And we've seen how they use that technology to jack in, and they used the chimpanzee with Bluetooth connectivity to wirelessly then, just using the chimpanzee's mind, play Pong, video game. Real thing. So when I saw this at first, it almost kind of sucked me in because I'm thinking about that technology, looking at that clip, it's sort of related. And yes, they do have clones, but then I'm immediately thinking like there's nothing ethical about this because think about it. If you clone or grow a human body, if you clone a body, it's going to have a brain. It needs a brain to survive. Obviously. In which case it then becomes its own person and should have rights because it's human. These are such complicated questions. Would that clone have a soul? A human clone? Does a human clone have the same rights as someone who is naturally conceived and born? As you? Would it be proper or ethical to take a clone and remove their brain or erase everything from their brain or leave their brain blank and then implant all of your memories and all of your emotions, maybe even in some way your soul into another body? Could that even happen? I don't think so. That's the missing element. I've said it so many times before. These transhumanists, these people who think that they can achieve some sort of immortality by combining technology with biology, they're missing the point of immortality. Anything they create, anything, it's synthetic. It's not real. Not to say that a clone, a biological clone, wouldn't be a living, breathing, real human being, with its own soul. That would be taking DNA or a sperm and an egg and creating a human in a test tube and in an incubator. That's a real human being. Still, it comes from the building blocks of life from humanity and from a higher power. But crazy questions, ethical issues that this raises for people, for all of us. And this is where we're going with artificial intelligence, robotics, jacking into the matrix. And the larger issue here too is that is complete disinformation, man. And that tells me that we're in a very dangerous place on social media, because a lot of people will believe that, and that'll take them straight down a very, very deep rabbit hole to a place that's completely fictional, and convince them probably of other things too. It's like a domino effect into darkness. If you come to one wrong conclusion, or make an improper assumption, or if you're deceived or lied to about something, and then the dominoes fall from that point, everything that comes after is a distortion or a continuation of a lie. And then everything that you believe from that point on takes you to a conclusion that is not proper. It takes you to an incorrect destination. And if you're fighting some sort of a political battle, or fighting a political enemy, or a foreign adversary of some kind, and they're filling your head full of this kind of information, distracting you, taking you down a path to a destination that is counterproductive, you've lost. You've lost the battle before you even got started, because at the starting point, you began with a false premise, a foundation that was built on sand and was designed to crumble. Why would that organization, CBK News, do that? When I go through and I look at what they post, a lot of it is just accurate. It's just stuff. They posted some of that Tucker Carlson material. That's real. He really did that. But that was a fabrication. If you didn't recognize that clip from the television series, you end up down a deep, deep rabbit hole if you get sucked into it. I think it's dangerous. I'm not in favor of censorship at all. So if they want to do that, I guess go do it, even though it's misleading people, taking people to crazy places. But that is one of the reasons I think that we are dealing with censorship on the level that we're dealing with it now, because some people are like afraid of that. I'm afraid of it too, but I think the solution is to make people more media literate, not to just try to protect them by shutting down posts like that. And obviously the censorship isn't working, because instead of shutting down that stuff, they're shutting down independent media sites and all media, all news on Facebook in Canada, gone. That's no solution. No solution at all. Wow. Strange times. We'll be right back.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
So, Secretary of State Antony Blinken went back to Ukraine. Why? Because I don't think the war is going that great for NATO. Certainly not as well as they were hoping. And we're looking at corruption. I think a lot of the money has gone missing. So Antony Blinken, goes back to Ukraine, fourth time now. And what are we seeing over there? Well, he's going to meet with Zelensky. He's meeting with Zelensky. He's doing his thing over there, checking things out. He's probably saying, hey, what happened to all the cash? What happened to all the weapons that we sent? How come you're not winning? How come everything's not going as planned? And of course, we're seeing, the top level military brass within the Ukrainian military being replaced now with Zelensky saying a different approach is needed. No kidding. We've also seen reports out of there where, just a week ago, we were reporting here that we were aware that somewhere around 300,000 troops, Ukrainian troops, may have been killed. And then there have been media reports out of there where they've kind of let it slip that it might be even as high as 400,000. A tragedy on that scale, not realized since World War II. Well, really World War I, and getting into, I think, the realm of losses that we saw in World War II, like kind of almost on that scale, certainly on World War I scale, all in one country. So Blinken over there, engaging in, as much as anything else, a public relations campaign. Here's a mainstream media report. Just to listen to a few seconds of this to kind of give you a sense of what the media is doing to sort of, I think, back this effort up, paying lip service to the government efforts. NATO. This is ABC.
Good progress, and he called it very heartening. Blinken is expected to meet Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky as part of this trip, which is really designed to show America's unwavering support for Ukraine. Blinken arrived early this morning by train via Poland. Blinken at a cemetery this morning, laying a wreath to honor Ukraine's soldiers who have lost their lives. Blinken is expected to pledge more aid for Ukraine, a senior State Department official saying new funding will amount to more than $1 billion. Well, his visit coincides really at a critical time on the battlefield as Ukraine's forces try to break through heavily fortified Russian defenses in the south. Ukraine is hoping any extra aid will help them in their bid to break Russia's land bridge to Crimea. But Russia did fire missiles towards the capital overnight, but all of them were intercepted by air defense. Attacks also in Greater Kyiv and down south in Zaporizhia and Odessa, where at least one person died.
All right. So, sugar-coated by ABC for Antony Blinken. That's a whole lot of money. Tons of money for that. Not nearly enough for the people in Lahaina. Pretty typical of the Biden regime. In Canada, the Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister, Chrystia Freeland, commenting tonight on the Bank of Canada and its recent interest rate hikes. Let's listen in.
Close. As Finance Minister, I'd like to comment briefly on the Bank of Canada's announcement this morning. The Bank of Canada's decision to maintain its overnight interest rate is welcome relief for Canadians. As Finance Minister, I fully respect the independence of the Bank of Canada as it delivers on its mandate to return inflation to target, which will support a return to the steady growth and stable prices, which were the hallmarks of the pre-COVID Canadian economy. The bank has a hard job to do, and our government respects the bank's independent role.
Enough. Gas prices are still too high. The inflation we've experienced still makes a lot of things far too expensive for average Canadians. It has put housing out of reach, the dream of home ownership out of reach, especially for first-time home buyers. It has put groceries out of reach for a lot of Canadians. The price of gasoline around here hitting, $1.67 a liter. What are we looking at there? It's over $6 a gallon now or something like that. I'd have to do the math. 3.78 liters per gallon. And even though the inflation rate is coming down, as I've said before, it doesn't mean prices have come down. Prices are not coming back down. The only thing that will bring prices down is an increase in productivity. And there have been recent studies, reports, just within the last week, sounding the alarm bell on low productivity rates in Canada itself. And even though Biden, over the Labor Day weekend, was trying to claim credit for a robust economy, the empirical evidence suggests otherwise. Burning Man is wrapping up the Burning Man event, but the cleanup is continuing. This year, more than ever, I've seen controversy surrounding that event like we've never seen before. This year, they had a lot of attention focused on the event because of all the rain that hit, and it turned the desert into a big mud pit. And a lot of people kind of got stranded there. They had to get people out. It attracts nearly 80,000 artists, musicians, activists. It's a week-long, what do you call it? Party? I guess it's a party. A paganistic festival where they burn this giant thing that looks like a man, sort of giving a nod to an ancient ritual where they used to put actual humans inside a giant thing that resembles a man like that, made of wicker, and then burn it with human beings being sacrificed inside. Of course, they don't put the humans in there now, but it's a great big party with a lot of drugs, alcohol, crazy vehicles, and people dressed up in Mad Max-like apocalyptic dystopian outfits. And a lot of people now pushing back against the festival because of where it's held on this dried up lake bed. And they say that the people involved and participating are actually doing a lot of environmental damage. Well, they go and I guess by participating, they're virtue signaling, positioning themselves as sort of anti-corporate, anti-establishment. And yet, as I understand it, in order to be there, some people are paying as much as $1,000 each just to go and get in. That hardly seems like a festival or party for the people or of the people. But that's the way they do it at Burning Man. What else can I tell you? Okay, you know what? I think that that kind of gets us where we need to be for the moment tonight. We're going to go to the phones here in a minute and let you guys kind of chime in. So let me put the number up on the screen. It's 1-833-975-3733. 1-833-975-3733. So tonight, what I would like to do is have you guys call in and tell me, what kind of city would you like to live in the future? We keep hearing about these 15-minute cities. And I would like you guys to tell me not what you don't want. I want you to tell me what you do want. Tell me what you want in a city of the future. What kind of city would you like to live in the future? What amenities would you like? How would you set it up? Let's come up with some ideas. Maybe we'll even get enough information going here to put together some sort of a plan, a report, or recommendation, or a template that we can make available to people that can be taken to politicians, to municipal council, to federal and provincial levels of government. And if we do that, maybe, just maybe, they'll listen. Okay, so let me just set up the phone lines here. I'll be right back.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, 1-833-975-3733 is the number to call to join the conversation. I'm ready to rock and roll. Here we go.
Join the conversation. Call 1-833-975-3733. That's 1-833-975-FREE. Speak up. Speak out. Make your voice heard. Maverick News. Fighting for freedom by defending your right to free speech. Be a Maverick. Join us.
Okay, so again, 1-833-975-3733. And let's go to our first caller of the night. Here we go. It's Isabel. How are you tonight? Well, I'm just fine. Yeah, I'm in a better mood tonight than I've been in a while. If you just give up and don't care anymore, you're much happier. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. That's right. That's exactly right. Oh, my. Yeah. 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 Yeah, I'm kind of getting to that age too where I notice that people don't listen to me very much. In particular, my family. Yep. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Yes. So, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah. None? Yep. Yep. Yeah, I have Monique trying to reach me on Facebook, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. If Monique, if you're watching and you're calling because you're trying to get on the show, um, better to phone the line because I can't do multiple things like that at once. Yeah, still trying. I got to shut it off. I can't even think. It's like I want to talk to you. Bling 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 bling. But you go ahead, Isabel. I'm sorry. Oh, hang on. You see what I did there? I took you off the screen. People couldn't even hear what you were saying because I got distracted by that call coming in. Go ahead and repeat what you were just saying. I'm sorry, folks, for taking that off the screen.
He doesn't like me, see? That's why you have men and women. And I used to tell my husband that when he was alive. I said, yes, God put you here, and then he put me here because he needed me to train you.
Uh-huh.
And he said, what do you mean? I said, well, guys only have 2 hands. But I said, women have to have 8 arms.
8 arms.
8 arms and 4 sets of eyes. Because normally, old school, we were home with the kids till the kids went to school, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's no wonder we go crazy after when the kids leave home. We have no choice.
So you'd
We
say
spent
you
all
don't
that time-
want to live in a city at all.
No,
I can understand
no.
that.
I've lived in Timmins, Ontario. And then when I was younger, I moved to from Scotland to Timmins, from Timmins to Ottawa. That was a culture shock. Going from bears and pine trees to politicians and snobbish people. I found Ottawa very snobbish. They're very political.
Yeah.
Very cold. Moved to London. London wasn't too bad. Then it got worse. I saw the impoliteness. I saw the, I don't know, the druggies, the drunks and all that. And we left there in 2006 and moved to Glencoe. In Glencoe, I can go anywhere within 3 blocks. But if I want a day trip, I can go to Chatham. I can go to Strathroy.
Yeah.
That's a day trip. For me, that's, we're going tripping. You were on a day trip today.
Yeah.
So I'm happy with that because I can leave that and I can come back to my little village and I can walk down the street at 9, 10 o'clock. I'm not going to get attacked.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so I can still live my old age. Well, wait a minute. My mature age and still feel safe. Still feel like I did when I was a teenager where I didn't have to look over my shoulder. I mean, I don't know how the kids do it today because now they're so sterile.
Yeah.
They don't have fun. They can't go play in the dirt. Oh my God, the germs. I mean, I remember running behind the mosquito truck in Ottawa, blowing that shit in the air. We thought it was great. Hey, this is cool. It's like smog. We didn't know what we were running behind, but we lived a life of carefree. We took what came along. We got through it, and there was no fear.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, you know, you fell down like I'm sure you with your kids. Okay, are you bleeding? No. Okay, just dust it off. You're great. Your mother put a little spit on it, and you were good to go.
Actually, you mentioned running behind the mosquito truck. That means, you know, they were spraying fogging to kill the mosquitoes, right? So,
yep.
Speaking of chemicals and toxicity, here's some video I shot today of a fire at a scrapyard, which had people around here pretty concerned. Excuse the panting. I took my dog with me on this news shoot. Can you hear him in the background there?
Oh,
he's like right in my ear.
Yeah, so it was too hot.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So black smoke was kind of drifting over much of the city today. When I got there, the worst of it had already been sort of contained. But just thought I'd share this with folks because it just shows again, you know, the kind of thing that a lot of people do get concerned about. And there they blocked off the street so people couldn't go down there. It was, oops, come on back up on the screen. There we go. Anyway, a lot of toxic smoke, and I'll tell you, I did get exposed to a little bit of it as I got into the area, and all that black toxic crap. Because in that scrapyard, they bring in. You can see the the mounds of the stuff there. They get a lot of the municipal stuff, all the smart meters, the old electrical meters. Last time I was in that scrapyard, they had a mountain of those things that they had collected. They've replaced them all with smart meters now in this community.
Yeah.
And there is the part of the basis for what you would say is a smart city or a 15-minute city. We already have that here in Chatham.
Yep. They're implementing it everywhere.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's crazy. It's literally crazy. I don't know, but my daughter lives in London and she sends me these reports on Facebook and I'm thinking, oh my God. Like, you can't even say don't go out after dark. Just don't go out at all.
Yeah.
Like with what's going on there, stabbings and shootings and no.
Well, you know, she lives near. Yeah, like I was in London, like an hour from here. For our American viewers, that's about 2 hours from the Windsor-Detroit border, east of there. Yeah. And I was just up there on the weekend, driving through a McDonald's parking like a plaza thing, and there were homeless people all over the parking lot. I grew up in that town. I've never seen anything like it. Homeless people just everywhere.
They're everywhere.
Holy smokes.
They're absolutely everywhere. I used to live, now I lived in the South End for a while with my husband and the kids. And then we moved down off of Dundas near, which is east. It's EOA, which is east of Adelaide. Everybody calls it EOA. That's the lower end of town.
Yeah, the rougher side of London. Yeah, so they say.
Right, and that's where my daughter stays now. I wish she didn't. So she's not far from Fanshawe College. So when they have the Frosh Week and all that crap that goes on, that's bad enough. But she's been sending me videos of these zombies that are walking down 2nd Street and laying on the road. And the cars are passing and these people are getting up and chasing the cars. And I'm thinking, and you want to live there?
Yeah.
And I guess at this point, it's hard for anybody to move because of the cost of rent.
Yeah.
Like,
and I just don't know, man. Like, they're, we're going to make these beautiful cities for the future. And, I'll tell you, it's since I was a kid, I grew up in that town, and there's a perfect example of it's just been a constant decline all my life. I've just seen that city get worse and worse and worse and worse. And so now, where when I was a kid, you really didn't see any homelessness when I was a little kid, to now it's like right down into the suburbs. In fact, even here in Chatham, last night, walking around with my dog late at night, a homeless person on my block asking for directions. How do I get out of here to get back on the main street? He said I'm like, you just go up there and turn left. And clearly not, he's just not all there because he was on some sort of substance, and felt very, very bad for the person, but it just shows it's like right in our neighborhood too. I've had my car, they rifle through my car at night sometimes and steal the change out of the cup holder, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we had it here. There was a run here. I don't know about Chatham, but we had a run here like everybody does. Truck theft. Pickup truck. And my grandson just lives a couple of streets down. He's just a young guy. So it's his first place, right? I'm going to do it on my own, Dad. I'm good, So he moved out with his girlfriend and parked his truck. It's not a new truck, but he purchased his first truck. And we kept telling him, don't leave anything in your truck. No. Okay, got it, Grandy. Okay. He left his wallet in his truck. He now his girlfriend had a little car parked in front of his truck. His truck was up the driveway a bit, so they really had to fangle the truck to get it out. But in the meantime, what these people had done was they stole another truck prior, and they were circling the neighborhood looking for another truck to steal. Well, here his was. It had the reverse mag wheels. It was the Chevy with the bow tie on. He put a special bow tie on his back end for hauling a trailer on the tailgate.
Yep.
So he had made this, because he works in metal. So he made this huge bow tie of the Chevy on the back. So that was the only way they could locate the truck. But when they located the truck, it had already been through the reserve. So there wasn't much left of the truck.
I see.
But these guys actually left the truck, the first truck they stole, they left it on the road running because they spotted his going around the block one time. So they left the first one they stole and grabbed his. I said, well, how did they get yours? It's parked behind your girlfriend's. He goes, yeah, I don't know how they did that, but they did it.
Wow.
And he said, the dog didn't even bark. I said, well, then you need to trade your dog in.
I guess so. Yeah, I guess so. Well, listen, Isabel, we're going to move on. I've got calls stacking up here. Really appreciate you calling in tonight.
I'll just stay in my little town.
Okay.
Okay, you have a good night.
You too, and I don't blame you a bit. It's a nice town you live in. Okay.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, who do we have in the line now?
Good evening.
Hello.
Yes, it's been whose real name starts with W. I sent you a few bit of cash the other day there, because there was one thing I have to say is, when you ask, you need to ask, and you ask because you have expenses to pay. So I said, hey, want to send that in. So that's
thank you.
It feels good when you do that.
Thank you.
And yes, you're very so welcome. And so I usually I go by Devin. You know who I am anyway.
I do, yes.
So
thank you.
I miss Dave calling in. The Dave, the fella from Toronto, and
yes,
he invests in.
Yep.
I haven't heard from him for a while.
Quite a long time. Yeah.
Yeah, something else.
But
so
anyway,
if I were to move, I'd want to. Yeah, Bart, go over to you.
Well, I just curious, what would you like to see in a city of the future? People are opposed to the idea of a 15-minute city. So what kind of city what would you have in a city of the future, that if you were going to help plan it out, what would you include? What kind of amenities? What things?
Well, first of all, I'd like to ask. I've heard about another version that's out there called the C40 city, whatever that means.
I'm not familiar with it.
But the 15-minute city is out of the question because of what's going on in United Kingdom right now. My choice would be to move up to Bristol, Quebec, which is about not far from Arnprior, Ontario.
Okay.
And just move up there where I spent a lot of my childhood, if not there, up to Landemont, like region northeast of Ottawa, which is up the Gatineau River.
Yeah.
And build up there, and
so you're saying you would just get out of the city altogether and build something almost off the grid, or is that kind of the idea, or in a small town someplace?
Off the grid, true. Yeah, like Alcove, Farrelton, like Farm Point, Maniwaki, the old area that I used to spend a lot of my childhood at.
Yeah.
In the summer times, I learned some
Well,
French.
that being
way back
said,
in
though,
the
I'm
day.
trying to get a sense from people, if you were going to design a city that you wanted to live in, you could design anything you want. You could put anything into it you want. Have created, planned it. It's called urban planning, right? So,
right.
What would you tell me what it would look like to you? What's your ideal community look like for the future?
Well, I would have the buildings would be, I mean, I'm not going to say I would placate too much to the environmental woke. There are a lot of old things that are being refused into being thrown away. They could be reconstituted into building materials. When I was young, I was into the brewery business quite a bit. And there was a lot of these grains that were spent grains. I'm not going to go through the whole process of how starch turns to maltodextrose and then turns to maltose sugar, and then how that's brewed, boiled with hops, and it's really made safe with the addition of carbon dioxide to make beer. I'm saying that a lot of these huge breweries like PBR in the States and all these places, they could take all those things and press board them and make them into harder than wood. Those spent grains, if they were conditioned, special kind of glue added to them, they could make like a 2x4, probably a quarter of the price of what like a wooden 2x4 would be, either softwood lumber.
You would use
or the real hardwood lumber.
You would use composite building materials with using like sustainable biomaterials.
Well, not in the name of sustainability, really. I believe in cutting a lot of trees down. I like that. And I think that with the fires and everything, I'd say 55 to maybe down to 35% of the reason why we are having all the fires in all the northern parts of our provinces is because there's not enough. I have to back up with what President Trump said. He said they don't do enough. Like when I was in the Gaspé Peninsula in the 1970s, when I was very young, and then in Montreal, like I would come to Montreal and work for a law firm as an employee, like a runner and a clerk for the Quebec Superior Court, but really for the law firm in Place Ville-Marie. So up in Gaspé, they'd have these guys coming through and they'd burn part of the wood to prevent forest fires, because the amount of brush that grows up is so thick. And these lefty, rich environmentalists They don't allow people to have a fireplace and a chimney or a wood stove where you can bake. Remember that beautiful bread that your your grandmother used to bake in the wood stove way back in the day? Well, that's the kind of that's healthy living. And when you're living in the midst of a biome, the proper biome with animals in the barn, with fishing, like in the Gaspé Peninsula where my mother came from.
Yeah.
Well, it's very, very good because if you could inculcate that into city planning, it would be way better than what we do. What they want to do. What they want to do is they don't care about the environment at all. They're just wanting to box people in and allow them not to go past.
Yeah.
So
So
have them. They'll have them punctured. You know, they'll
So
have
again-
them patted on the shoulder and
Yeah.
given something inside their metabolism.
So
they're recognizable to everybody who passes by with sensors, like police.
right. So what
So,
would
you know-
what so you're saying what? Give people
Well,
access to wood
I'd
stoves?
say like say for instance, like not really like that's not where I'm like let me like say for instance at the corner of what they're doing in Ottawa is that they have a building at Preston and Carling that's higher, that's two-thirds higher, I'd say maybe twice as high as the Peace Tower now, and it's a huge condo building. And so when they want to keep on building, and when Ford and all these people want to take the green spaces and build buildings high up and huge neighborhoods, well, that's going to really put a burden on the thoroughfares and all the small streets going through there. You wouldn't be able to get, like, it'll turn into downtown New York of the 1960s. It won't be tenable to be able to get around.
Okay, so you
And
wouldn't.
I'm talking about the suburbs.
Yeah, I want to know what you want.
But I'm saying,
so not what you're against. What do you want? You want?
I'm
you
for
don't want-
steel and concrete. I'm definitely for steel and concrete.
Yep.
And I'm not placating to the woke left, but I know a lot of other sources to get things to build with that won't cost as much.
Okay, so you're talking
know,
about
there's a
building
lot of things
materials,
that are being
composite materials, and things like that.
Oh, they could be recycled easily.
Sure.
And they throw out drywall in places all over the place when they go and redo a house. When there's like when in Woodlawn, when they had that real bad 2018 hurricane, they had all this huge pile of mess that they had to deal with. So what did they do? They buried it or burned it or did something with it. Well, it could be taken down and it could be reconstituted and refurbished and it could be repurposed for building things, and it would not cost as much as an $85 or a $350 2x4, which is only like 10 to 15 to 12 to 15 feet long, and it's only a 2x4.
Okay.
So, that's what. But I mean, that's cities. But for me, I would want to move back to the country. Also, I was with a girlfriend about 26 years ago, and she had a nice like place out there in Ontario. Ontario and Quebec are very similar that way. But I would rather live out in the sticks. But that's what the movement. There seems to be a movement. Oh, bring everybody back. Let's urbanize the country. Well, if you urbanize the country and the supply lines are falling down, gas prices are going up, and they're punishing everybody that's got a $15 an hour job, minimum wage job, and they're punishing them for driving a car. And Ms. Dear Krista goes and says, "No, we just want to say we're very thankful." And I think the people of Canada should be very, very pleased that the interest rates are not doing anything. You know, like she speaks down to people, you know, like this is ridiculous. So her worldview and my worldview are so different. It is not even, you know, it would not even come close. So
Okay.
I'd say if you wanted to take approach with, yeah, we better go ahead. But
we better
first, I
move
just
on.
wanted to say with Polyev, at least he's got the you know, the unction to go forward. So I think he would probably take up some of the ideas I spoke about. So Rick, you take care.
Thank you.
And thank you very much for everything you do. And you know, none of us have forgotten how you and Brendan. I'm sorry I haven't watched every program. I'm sorry about whatever happened with Ms. Spencer there, Lori Spencer. I liked her very much, but there was some ways about her that seemed to be a little bit disagreeable in some ways. And I don't want to know about it. I don't want to get into it with you. You bring it up whenever you want. I'll probably miss it. I'm busy. I can't watch it all the time. But
did something bad happen? She's still around.
well, I thought that you and her have parted ways, and you're not doing any more work together.
No,
that's what I got.
No,
Am I wrong?
Yeah, she's on with me at least sort of about once a week, and
Hey,
we talk
great.
almost daily.
Okay.
Yeah.
I totally misconstrued something that you said. I'm very sorry. I mean, I should be watching the program every day. You know, but you know, no, I think the world of her. I think sometimes she's a little bit like ideologically, she's kind of jumpy a little bit, but you know, it's okay. I mean, we need diversity in ideas, and I think, and you're very good that way. You bring a lot of diversity. And that's fantastic. And I like that young guy that works for RT that was on.
Caleb Maupin, yeah.
He has yeah, he's great.
He's pretty smart.
Mr. Maupin, yeah, he's fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, listen, I better let you go. There's people waiting.
Yeah.
And hi, everybody from the capital, from the western part of the capital anyway. I hardly ever go down there.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, have a great night.
You
okay,
too.
Bye-bye.
I appreciate the call. Okay, I think it's Gina.
Yep.
Hey.
Yeah, finally. Every time I keep trying to call through, I keep getting disconnected. But hi, everybody.
Well, greetings, Gina. Tell me what you want.
Thanks,
Don't
Rick.
tell me what you don't want. Tell me what you want.
Yeah.
What do you want in a city of the future?
One of the things that I'd really like to see in like a 15-minute city would be like a regular market, like you know, like a farmer's market that goes, you know, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, something like that. So we could have options like, you know, not like the big grocery stores. I'm talking like all the farmers, the local community farmers, locally grown foods that would all be available in one place. And my dog thinks that's a great idea too.
Oh, I hear that. Yeah. Okay, so you want a farmer's market. It's a 24-hour a day, 7-day a week farmer's market with local produce. I'm taking notes.
Yeah. Good.
What
good.
Else?
I think that this is something. Well, I mean, it would be like a really big thing. I mean, the farmer's market could also consist of like, you know, like Richmond has like a night market kind of thing. Same sort of similar idea. That would be ideal. So, you know, it wouldn't matter what shift anybody worked at. They could always go shopping and get whatever they need.
Okay,
you know, in their community. And
we've got that established. What else do you want? What else do you want? If you're going to plan out a city and make sure that everybody has, you know, the infrastructure, you know, what do your roads look like, for instance? Sorry, did I lose you, Gina? Maybe her call got dropped again. Hello, Gina. Did we lose her call? It looks like, we lost her call. Call back, Gina. Call back. So anyway, we'll go for a little break. That'll give Gina a chance to reconnect. Her cell phone must have dropped out. And if you want to call, you can join the conversation at 1-833-975-3733. And if you're inclined to help support the show, you can donate at freedomreporters.com. You'll see that on the ticker tape on the bottom of the screen there, freedomreporters.com. You can also donate through the Rumble rants. If you're watching on Rumble, please make sure you subscribe if you are watching over on Rumble. We really need that. And if you're on one of our other platforms like Facebook, please share. And subscribe on YouTube too. If you're on our backup channel over there, our ban on YouTube and our main channel continues as we speak. But we'll go back to the conversation with Gina when she reconnects, or with our next caller, whichever comes first or most fairly, at 1-833-975-3733. Don't go away. I'll be right back.
Hello, world. Are you awake? Uniting humankind by liberating millions of minds at a time. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, I'm back, and Gina must be having trouble with her cell phone access or something. She said she was getting cut off, and I can see that she phoned in multiple times, and her call got kicked at 1, 2, 3, 4 times. 4 times she phoned in. So there must be something going on with her phone service out there. I can see that she called in that many times, and gonzo. Okay, here we go. We've got a new call, and I think it's the man himself. Hello, sir. How are you tonight?
That was fast. I got you on speakerphone. Can you hear me, sir?
I can.
All right. Well, my hands are busy. I took the night off of work to do some canning.
Oh, good for you. That's cool.
So you know what? Everything out of my garden. I'm on 36 jars now.
Wow.
Been on it since noon, doing everything: salsa, beets, pickles, hot peppers, you name it. I got so many hot peppers that my hands are on fire, literally, from the juices of the jalapenos and the habaneros, and just brutal.
That's great.
Brutal.
Good for you.
But yeah, no, I'm listening to the show, and great show it is, anyways, like usual. The caller that said, who was it, Gina? Was she talking about farmers markets?
Yep.
That's the way to go. You know, you want to beat world hunger, grow it, right? We have vast areas of land that's not being used, right? You can wipe out world hunger in a heartbeat.
So
Canada could.
So if in this city that we're planning together, you had like a corporate grocery store, like Loblaws, that wanted to come in, would you say yes or no? Would you somehow prohibit them from coming in, or give preference to some sort of a local farmers market over that kind of thing? Or what do you think?
It's funny. It's funny you're talking about this, because Liz Valley, who's part of the group, she's on my Facebook anyways, she posted something about Ridgetown, I think it is getting a McDonald's. Okay, you're out by Ridgetown.
I think it's Blenheim. Yeah.
Well, there's towns out there. Okay, Tobermory, for instance. Okay, I've been going up to Tobermory my whole life. Mm-hmm. In order for me to get a Martin's coffee, I got to backtrack to Wirington, which is 85 kilometers. Okay, east or southeast, whatever it is, okay, back to Warrington just to get a Tim Hortons coffee, because the town of Tobermory does it right. They don't let any big boxes into their town because it hurts small business.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so and it's still that way, man. I've been going up there 30 years, and it's all mom and pop shops, and that's the way it should be. Okay, as soon as you allow Tim Hortons to come in, guess what? The mom and pop shop that had the restaurant in the coffees, and that's how they survive. It's seasonal, right? They take over.
So in the case of Blenheim, they're getting a McDonald's. And, this is an interesting conversation, because I remember years ago in the town of Blenheim, just down the road from Ridgetown, years ago, there was a very small sort of independently owned grocery store in the town of Blenheim. Been there for years, and it was getting it was really old, not really bright inside. It was just kind of worn down, right? Served the community real well for quite a long time, but it was small and very basic, right? And now they have, what is it? It's a no frills or whatever, but it's a great big corporate grocery store. And I remember going and doing stories at the time with the owner of the independent grocery store. And of course, it was going to put him out of business. And some people were opposed to it. A lot of people, there was a lot of, back and forth in the community about whether they should build this big grocery store or not. And I remember getting into a conversation with the councilor there at the time, Frank Verkuterin, longtime municipal councilor, and he was all for the new grocery store. And he told me that I was very misguided in my view, that it should, probably just leave well enough alone and just keep the old grocery store. And I don't know. I have mixed feelings about it, because now they've had that new grocery store there for quite a long time. And I think it's created quite a few jobs that they didn't have before. I think it's kept some people in town to shop locally rather than have to drive all the way into, say, Chatham to a larger grocery store if they wanted more things that weren't available locally before. So they're kind of a double-edged sword there, right? But the poor guy who had the smaller grocery store definitely cost him, because they put them out of business. So I don't know. What do you think about that?
Well, you know what? I'm all for the little guy. Okay, and this is how I did it this weekend. My mom wanted to do some canning, so she's making chili sauce for me. But I had to get her the raw ingredients, right? Onions, tomatoes, everything she needed, right? So I made a trip Saturday morning, I think it was, or no, would have been Monday. What am I thinking? Monday, out to Leamington, in the Mennonite community out there. Okay, I bought a bushel of tomatoes for $12 for a whole bushel. For $12, a bushel of cucumbers, all organic grown, $12 for a bushel.
Yeah.
Okay, now you're not going to get that. You're not going to get that in the big grocer. You're going to get $2.50 for a tomato.
Yeah.
Okay, you're going to pay $2.50 for a green pepper.
Yeah.
Okay, so, and that's the little guy.
Yeah.
And I'm going to deal with the little guy.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Even if the little guy was a little bit more money, I know what I'm getting at the end of the day when I'm dealing with the Mennonites. Okay, they're all about farm growing, right? Outdoor, not the greenhouses. Okay, I wasn't, and I stated it. I end up. You would know where this is. Highway 31, I think it is, out by Leisure Lake, the campground there.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. There's Ann and Dave's. Okay, right on the corner. And they sell vegetables, all their produce that they grow. Onions, okay, big Spanish onions, a bushel, $10 for a bushel. Are you joking me? You know how big a bushel is?
Yeah, it's lots.
We're not talking. We're not talking the little basket. We're talking bushel. Okay. So, they gained a friend, and it was funny because I used social media to find them. Right? It was like, who has outdoor tomatoes and peppers and everything else. And right away, somebody said Ann and Dave's, Highway 31 out by Leamington. So I'm on my way. So I went out that route, and I'm glad I did, because I'm going to keep going that way.
So
and then down the street, I bought apples from the apple farmer. They're $12 a bag, or bushel. Pardon me, $12 a bushel for apples.
So what else would you like to? What about infrastructure, like roads and sewers and things like that? How would you like, the city of the future to look in that regard, infrastructure?
Well, in the future, I can't even look into the future. I live by the day, Rick. Okay, honestly,
yeah.
I do. Now, if you're looking 2 years down the road or 3 years down the road, we're not on the same page. I'm just looking for tomorrow.
Okay.
Right? Yesterday's gone. I don't give a shit about yesterday. I don't care what happened in Ukraine or the rest of the world yesterday. It's what's going on today. I stay in the now, right? So my future, if I was to look at it, I don't know.
Because I mean, the 15 minute cities are like, they don't want cars, so you're going to have probably not, roads like we have right now. You'll have blocked off streets where people can maybe cycle or walk, and then the bigger roads would maybe go around it or something. And we're seeing that happen in bigger cities too, where they're kind of taking Main Street downtown, blocking it off and turning it into like walking open air market kind of things instead of having cars there, right? So that's kind of what I'm wondering.
Yeah, most definitely. There's too many cars on the road now, right? And it's only going to get worse, right? As the days better on. So for roads, I don't see roads. I see flying cars. Okay, that's the future. If you're talking about the future, I don't see roads. I see landing strips. That'll be your roads. The electric car coming, if you like it or not, it's coming. It's already here, right? So you got to embrace for the future. What do they call it? 2030, 30 by 30?
Yeah.
The government's calling it 30 by 30, and right, where everything's going to change, right? I don't know. The future.
Would you make roads for people to drive on, or would you restrict access as well? And make
if it was my city, stay the hell out of it. How's that sound? This is where I live.
Get the hell out!
I don't want
we don't want anybody coming in here.
Yeah, this is our neighborhood, right? I live on a dead end, and you know what? I'm glad I do, because there's not many people that come down here, right? If you don't belong here, you're quickly asked to, what are you doing here, right? That's the people with the shopping cart,
right?
We see them; they come down, right? So you're saying you were in Windsor and you went down by McDonald's downtown?
No, London.
And you see it all? Oh, London?
London.
Well, you should see Windsor. Windsor, same way, man. These McDonald's and Tim Hortons have become crack shacks. Right? It's where they all hang out. Yeah. Now, before Tim Hortons used to be open 24 hours a day. And if you look around, many of them are closed.
Wow.
Right? And that's the reason why. That's the reason why the homeless will flock to those places, right?
Well,
and they'll hang out all night long.
There's a question I hadn't even thought of. What do we do in the city that we're planning? What do we do with the homeless people? How do we take care of them? Or what do we do with them? Any ideas? Not to put you on the spot, I just throw it out there.
Unfortunately, most of the homeless people, there's a minority that are economically homeless, but the majority of them are out there because they're on something, right, of some substance, and there's only three ways out of that one, right? I stated it before. Was it death is the first one, jails, or a program, 12-step program, or a rehab, right? So I think the government's just letting it go, and they're legalizing it just to kill people off. That's my opinion, right? Daniel Smith has the right.
What do we do? So what do we do with our city? Do we build like a shelter or some facility, or what do we do with them?
Well, you got to build a shelter. You got to do something, right? Like there's a lot of empty commercial buildings in every city. A lot. A lot of empty schools in every city because they're building schools. Now nobody's living in them. Now make them homeless shelters, right?
Okay.
A friend of mine, actually, I was jet skiing on the weekend. He's substance counselor for this place in London. And he said, Leo, there's 500 people living in this place. 500. Okay, in this this compound in London. I'll get the name for you. And he says, it's wild. I said, what do you mean? He says, it's wild, man. He says, people are selling drugs open air. It's supposed to be for substance abuse program, right?
Yeah.
And he said, I said, what, they just let it go on? He said, what are we going to do? It's all government funded, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're paid by the head. It's like herding cattle to the Calgary Stampede, or to the slaughterhouse, pardon me. Right? And that's treating them just like cattle, buddy. So what do you do with the homeless?
Yeah.
Give them homes.
Just give them a house.
There's no
give them an
reason
apartment,
why.
or give them a place to stay.
Right. We have that now. We have Windsor Housing. Every city has it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's overcapacitated, right? But why did they ever stop building it? Right. Now the price of, like I said, a 2x4 is $12.50 for an 8-foot 2x4. The cost of housing has nothing to do with the cost of housing. It has to do with the cost of building that house. You know, the property value, just for your lot in the city of Windsor now is like $125,000 just for an empty lot, where it used to be $15,000, $20,000 for an empty lot. Right now, you get that empty lot, you build a house. Now the building material is going to cost you $300,000. Now you're set at $400 and something thousand just to build a home. Right. Yeah. So I don't know. We have all the trees in the world. Okay. We have lots of trees. There's no reason why they shouldn't be milling lumber to build houses. Okay. And slating areas for the homeless to build those houses for the homeless on. We have the land. We have the ingenuity. We have the logs. We have it all. Right. We're
so
Canada.
You're saying government funded public housing or shelters. So we're going to build like a one facility or an apartment complex for the homeless kind of thing, or a combination of stuff.
Well, apartment complexes work. Okay. High rises.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We have them. Every city has them, right? They work. Okay. And you could fit the people in there, put them in there. Vancouver has the SRTs or whatever they are. I think it is. Nobody in Vancouver is homeless. They're homeless because they want to be homeless. Now they have single room occupancy, SORs, that's what they're called. Single room occupancies in Vancouver. Okay, where nobody's denied shelter.
Yeah.
Okay. It's just people don't want it. They'd rather, I don't know, live on the street. It's a choice, I guess.
Okay. Well, I should move on here, Leo. I've got another caller in the queue. I appreciate
have a good night.
Calling in as always. Thank you. Really appreciate it. Okay.
Adios.
All right. Who do we have in the line now?
Oh my gosh, I guess that would be me.
Well, it is.
How you doing?
I'm okay. How are you?
I'm doing okay, thanks.
That's good.
I don't know what I'm going to say, to be quite honest.
Okay. Well, tell me. Just tell me what you want in your city. What do you want in your future city?
Well, it depends. If we're talking government-run 15-minute city, I probably want to be in the country.
Well, you get to.
If you're talking about,
we get to design anything we want. I want to know what you guys. We know that people don't want a 15-minute city, so I want to know what your city looks like. What would you? How would you design it? What would you put into it, or what would you omit?
Well, I would put, just like in Greek times and whatever, plenty of open air Colosseum type places where people can gather and enjoy arts of all kinds, music, whatever, live open air arts, encouraging people to gather and enjoy that energy.
Okay.
A positive, healthy energy, incorporating as much nature as possible, get rid of all this ugly, nasty concrete city looks, restore beautiful old buildings that instead of tearing them down, restore them, make and to their glory and beauty. Incorporate nature everywhere. Because people we don't like the feeling of being surrounded by ugly cement. Like they've taken down beautiful historic buildings and replaced them with these hideous, nasty things that, quite honestly, is just, you don't even want to be in, let alone outside of them, right?
Okay, so
you want people to have pride in their surroundings and be happy to be there.
Sure. And so you want to save the old buildings, preserve especially the historic ones. And if people
absolutely,
and so for the city of the future, you're kind of preserving the past, but in order to make sure everybody has a place to stay and we do whatever, like, would you allow any new construction, or are you just talking about just keeping it status quo? What kind of buildings would you allow?
I think the first thing that should be done is clean up and restore what we already got.
Okay.
That should be the first order of business, right? And then figure out, yes, we've got homeless problems, we got drug problems and whatever. Figure out a way to make everybody comfortable and safe, but that it's not in the thick of the city, so that parents and families can walk down the street in the city and not be worried about stepping on needles and stuff, right? Like, people need their lives back. Like, families want to go and get groceries and go into a Dairy Queen or whatever. Not necessarily that, it's not my cup of tea, but enjoy time with their children in downtown, in the city. If they live outside of the city, they want to, it used to be a treat, did it not?
Yeah.
I think it did. Now everyone's too scared to. Nobody wants to be around it because it's gotten so nasty and ugly.
We're kind of dipping into social problems instead of just urban planning. They kind of overlap a little bit. I don't know if but as far as planning the city, what do you want to include? Like, I talked a little bit about infrastructure. We've talked here with you about what kind of buildings we want. And you're saying, instead of building a lot of new buildings, let's restore old stuff. Whenever practical, when it's not practical or cost efficient, what kind of buildings would you allow to be constructed? Single family homes, or would you give preference to like apartment units for people? Would you have industry incorporated into your urban planning so that people would have a place to work?
I think industry, I think people have been too integrated with industry. We're suffocating with all this, right? It's just at this point, with all the craziness, you should have a corner that's just a Nerf city, for crying out loud.
Sorry, what city? A Nerf city?
Nerf.
A Nerf city?
I mean,
what are you talking about? Like Nerf balls? Nerf?
Yeah, you remember Nerf?
I do.
You remember Nerf balls and Nerf this and Nerf that?
Yes.
Like, build a Nerf city to keep the But
it's like the ultimate padded room, right, for the crazy people, which is probably perfect for all of us. This.
I mean,
we can't hurt ourselves there.
A safe place to go. Yeah. Right? If you're becoming unhinged or whatever, go to the Nerf city and get it out of your system and, carry on. But I mean, we need nature, and they're trying to take that from us. They're trying to squeeze people out of the country into the city. That's already making people crazy and suffocated, right?
Okay,
so how are they?
Sure. So that's cool. So a lot of green.
You
areas
need to incorporate. Yeah, and wildflowers that growing in downtown, middle of the street. All this stuff helps clean air. I used to hear about, we're going to put gardens on rooftops. They never did, really. I haven't seen or heard much of that.
Would you have high rises, and would you have high rises and put gardens on the rooftops?
I think could be. It's not my cup of tea. Like I said, I want to run to the country and, you know, whatever. But that being said, if you're talking about city infrastructure, yeah, you can have a healthy balance of everything. Don't get rid of single family homes and stuff, because again, people are just like, we're suffocating from all this restriction and, you know, like, we need nature desperately. I don't know about you, but I'm feeling that very much so. And, you know, have grassy spaces that people can walk in their bare feet and have it well kept,
Right. So
you know, so that people can
roads?
safely
What
walk
about
in their
roads?
bare feet.
Would you just keep roads so
Well,
people can drive their cars around and do all that stuff, or how would you plan? We get to do whatever we want. We're designing our own city. So tell me what the roads are going to look like.
yeah. Well, I think Leo has a point there about the flying thing, because there seems to be quite a push towards that. I don't know how that would play out, because I never learned how to drive. And
yeah, bad drivers are bad enough on the ground. I'm a little worried about people flying around.
It makes it.
How are you going to park that thing?
It does concern.
If you can't parallel park, what makes you think you can fly your car? But anyway, okay.
I know part of that is like, you know, the rooftops, I guess, would be the, you know, the designated drop-on zones or whatever for flying cars. I don't know.
Okay,
just
so
keep it away from the general public.
What about roads?
You
Everybody's,
know,
you know, everybody that calls in here is against electric cars. They don't want restrictions. They want to be able to come and go as they please and drive through the city. From what I'm hearing from people calling in, getting upset because, you know, really these 15-minute cities are largely about restricting automobile access. So how do you feel about that? Does our city just let people drive wherever they want? Do we have roads like we have now? More roads, less roads, bigger roads, 4-lane roads, bike lanes? What do we have?
Well, I think if you get into the more road situation, it's a bit of a slippery slope, because then you're talking California, LA, and look at some of those highways and whatnot, right? I don't know what the solution would be. Is, you know, build it differently so that it's not so congested in specific places. Does that make sense?
Well, I guess, how do you achieve that? You either have to build more roads, wider roads, to give people more access so that they can handle a higher volume of traffic, or you have to restrict the flow of traffic by restricting access to certain areas. You don't have as much traffic flow. So what does your city look like? Do we restrict access in and out and around, or do we just build more roads with more lanes so that people can drive more and handle higher volumes of traffic with less congestion that way?
That sounds good.
Okay.
Because people aren't gonna give up their, you know, people aren't gonna give up their vehicles. People need freedom.
So
like the more the government tries to suffocate people and restrict, the more people are gonna rebel and want freedom more.
Yeah. So you want more roads, and in order to do that, in order to increase the capacity for traffic, I guess you're looking at what, like elevated roads, maybe. When I've been to like Houston, that's a very modern looking city. When I've driven through there, they have all these super overpass things, and one's going over like 3 levels high and stuff. It's actually pretty cool, but it's like major infrastructure for roads all over the, you know, city, and it's actually very clean. That was the thing that struck me about that. So is that kind of what you're thinking?
Well,
a lot of concrete. There's a lot of concrete.
I don't like all that concrete. That's the problem.
Well, we have to build something, or not. So what's your city look like? More roads, less roads?
How about more efficient roads? How about that?
Okay, what does that look like?
With more direct routes to, you know, the main things and have it so that people can walk in, you know, to markets, and you need a lot of
more
open air
roads
markets.
designed more efficiently. 'Cause I'm taking notes.
Yeah.
More efficiently.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So you're gonna need more parking.
Mm-hmm.
Or more.
Yeah, because now they're doing less parking, and it's caused, like I'm already seeing, the stress and the aggravation that it's causing. They're building apartment buildings with, you know, less than half of parking spaces available for the people living in the apartment buildings.
It sounds like
how does that make
it sounds
any
like
sense?
it sounds like you've moved into the capture area of an alien spacecraft and you're in like a giant alien hall where they're about to conduct experiments on your brain or something. What happened? Where did you go? What happened? Have you been abducted?
Kind of. I just realized, I looked at the time and went, oh my God, I bet I got to run across the street and buy my mini dip or it'll be too late.
Your mini dip? What's a mini dip?
Yeah.
What's a mini dip?
That's a Lotto 649 thing. I buy it every Wednesday.
Oh.
With a prayer on my lip.
All right.
I went, oh my gosh, I don't know the deadline for that.
I thought maybe you got beamed up and we were going to have to come and rescue you or something.
Well, sometimes I wish I would be, you know, but does that sound, it should sound better by now.
Well, listen, we're getting close to 9 o'clock and you've got to go get your mini dip.
Yeah.
So just wrap up for me. Is there anything else tonight that you want to add to our city of the future here before we sign off?
Well, all of this, more parks, you know, because they were telling us that they were going to give us more parks and they never did. They took them away, it seems, you know. So, I mean, honestly, there should be, and this whole integration of the way they're doing the bike lanes, I don't know about you, but all of a sudden we got a bike lane right in front of my apartment building, right?
Yeah.
Restricted cars. Someone has to please explain to me how people in an apartment building with a big, huge moving truck is going to be able to move in or out of that building now. Because when I moved in, well, vehicles were able to park in front of the building, and now how are you going to get your sofa into the front of that building? Because it's now just a narrow bike lane. You see what I'm saying? The craziness of it, right? Does that make any sense?
So you're saying Ixnay on the bike lane, eh?
Yeah,
bike lanes?
not the way they're doing it.
No bike lanes, or some bike lanes.
Not in how they're doing it. They could do some, but not in such a stupid way. Like, for the love of God, why would you do that in front of an apartment building and people aren't able to move in and out the furniture? And how are they going to do that? They're doing it stupidly. Like, so integrating the nature and the bike lanes, you know, integrating all that smartly. Oh, I don't even like that word though.
Okay.
But anyway, does that make sense?
Yeah, sure. What about internet? Just tell me about how would you handle internet, especially if it was
Ixnay the 5G. Yeah.
Do you want internet or not?
I think it's now a necessary evil, right? People kind of have come to depend on it. But I mean, I still only use 2.4G in my apartment.
Yeah.
I don't need the 5G, and it's healthier, right? Get rid of all these horrible, unhealthy things like, you know, light bulbs that they're using that aren't healthy. Like, just get back to doing everything healthy. Like, all these corporation crap they're putting upon everybody is just it's not good.
So
you know,
no
so people are
5G,
rebelling
only
against them.
Max out at 2.4 gigahertz on your internet.
Yep.
No 5G.
Mm-hmm.
And what about satellite internet? Do you allow it or not?
I don't know enough about satellite, but if it's safe and it's not like this, what we got now being pushed on is 5 and 6G, then I wouldn't be opposed to it. No.
Okay. So
and microwaves. Get rid of microwave stuff, like anything unhealthy like that. Get rid of it.
No microwaves. So no microwave transmitters allowed. Is that what you're saying?
Mm-mm. Yeah.
Yeah, I used to work in a shack, a transmitter shack, and we used a microwave transmitter to send video back to the TV station off a giant tower. I was there. I was around microwave transmitters for years and years and years. That explains why I think the way I do with my.
Well, kind of. Yeah, it kind of does.
Look what it did
I won't
to
go
me.
into that though right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. So Rick, I'm actually at this very moment buying my mini dip. So you're going to bring me
you
some
go
luck.
take care of your mini dip. Thank you for calling in tonight. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you so
And
much.
We'll
Thank
wrap
you.
up with you. Good luck
I
with
have
your
ticket in
mini
hand.
dip. Okay. See ya.
Well, if I win the millions, I'll help support the phone line.
Okay. Thank you. Talk to you later. See ya. Bye.
Okay. Take care. Bye.
Okay, and dropping that. There we go. Okay, folks, if you are so inclined, you can support the channel by donating at freedomreporters.com or at maverickdonations.com. You can also help support us just by liking, sharing, and subscribing. It doesn't cost you a penny to do that. And please subscribe over on Rumble and share. We'd really appreciate that as well. Just helps get the message out, helps the channel grow, and helps us continue our fight to preserve free speech and free media. That's the thrust of everything we're doing here. Hope you guys enjoyed the program tonight. I certainly appreciate you guys hanging out with me, as always. And I should be back tomorrow, Thursday, I think tomorrow is. So 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then after that, things are going to get a little bit more spotty in terms of programming because my daughter's getting married this weekend and I do need to take care of some of that stuff. So I'll be on when I can be, but certainly Saturday for sure I'm not going to be here. Now, tomorrow I will be here because I do have a special guest lined up, Tom Marazzo, one of the leaders of the Freedom Convoy. The original Freedom Convoy is going to be along. He has a new book out, and we're going to talk about that with him tomorrow night, right here on the Maverick News Channel. Guys, thank you so much again for spending your time with me here tonight. It's a privilege, as always. Catch you on the flip side.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.